It's February, the coldest month of the year, but don't worry, let me warm you up with some great tips and ideas on how you can tackle your garden.
This month, I'll show you how to plant a colourful container that will look good now and last through the spring. Keep watching to get those seeds growing for a great and healthy crop. And I'll share some tricks and tips on how you can spruce up your garden.
Welcome to Step by Step Gardening with me, David Domoney, at Blue Diamond Garden Centre's Bridgemere Show Gardens. Now, our plant of the month for February, I can't think of a better one to give us a taste of spring to come than the family of Primula. And there are so many different types. The native one, Primula vulgaris, you will notice on a woodland walk, full of flower, in dappled shade underneath the trees, a lovely light-coloured yellow. In fact, the shade of yellow Primrose is named after it. It's a beautiful plant that has a lot of different varieties within it. Now, this is one, oh, the fragrance. You get the best fragrance from the yellow ones. And I know this because I worked on a nursery that was growing these primroses. And if you take a look at the name, Primrose, prim as in prima, as in first, rose as in rose, it was known as the first rose. Primrose, although it's not a rose at all. But the colour of the primrose is unbelievable. Look at this pink one here. Yellow in the centre, red, and then pink. And now I've got a red one with a yellow heart. It's one of my favourites, this one. And a blue with a yellow eye, plus a white, and there are many more. Look at this. A rainbow of colour in February. How gorgeous. And again, these are perfect. Baskets, tubs, window boxes. Uplift your heart with the different colours that are available. Now, the primrose is part of the Primula family, and there are lots of different types within that. Now, this one here is a little Primula, and it's called Rosebud. And take a look. It actually looks like a little rose. Look at this one here. It looks like a little rose flower. The best thing about prims is they're also pretty good for pollinators. The single flowered ones are obviously easier. They're less complicated than the doubles for the little winged pollinators to be able to get some food during the quiet months. And I like this one as well. This one's called Flamenco, and it's got a double flower, but it's got white edges to it. This is only one shade. There are many other shades within the collection. Now, these are oak-leaved primulas. The leaf itself has got slight bulbous edges, very much like a quercus, like an oak. But the flowers that come above, little touch of red on the outer, very deep gold on the inner. There's so much of a choice. Another hybrid is the Polyanthus. Look at this big beast. And the amazing thing with the Polyanthus is it sends up a big stem high above the foliage and a burst of flowers at the top, floating above an emerald green sea of foliage. When you go to choose your plants in the garden centre, give yourself an extra half an hour. Come and enjoy the selection process and look for the healthiest plants. And check in the heart to see how many buds have yet to come. I like buying my prims when they are in tight buds, so they open out and flower in my own home. When you're growing them at home, obviously the successional flowers, there's more flowers coming in. So if you've got varieties where one or two flowers have just gone over, there's no worry. It's quite natural because there's so many buds. Just look in the middle. See how many new flowers have yet to come out. When the flower has finished, just pick them off. Just pull them off like that, deadhead. Put them in the compost heap. There we go, we've got another one just in there. And while you're deadheading, go as low as you can so you're not leaving a bit of the stalk. and then just lightly pull and it comes free, and that way you've completely removed the old flower in readiness for the new buds and new flowers still to come. It's such a marvellous family of plants with so many different choices. It's a real treat in a very quiet month for flower colour.
Prims are perfect for containers to help you bring life to those tricky spots where you can't plant into the ground. So thank goodness for pots. And what a choice there is. But which one should you pick? Let me help you.
Choosing the right container to the right plant is all very important. Now, in this masterclass, I'm going to demystify the different types to help you make the right choice for your own garden.
First up, what's it made of?
Terracotta. It's from the Italian. Terra meaning earth, cotta meaning baked earth. And this is the container that's traditionally used. I love terracotta. I do all of my planting in terracotta in the greenhouse. The thing about terracotta, it's fired at a slightly cooler temperature, which makes it almost porous, so air and moisture can pass through, which is why it's particularly good for growing herbs in that can tolerate a drier location. The problem is, of course, is if moisture gets into those pores during really cold frosted nights, that water can expand and cause cracking with the container. So with most terracotta, I will give it some protection or move it into a more sheltered position during the winter. However, there are some that have been specially prepared in a way to make them frost proof, and as you can see, this one here, this one says guaranteed frost proof. So always double check the label. Frost proof means that it won't crack during the cold. Frost resistant means it's less likely to crack, but in very cold circumstances it can. But generally speaking, standard terracotta pots are fantastic to use for Mediterranean plants and herbs and growing in the greenhouse and the like, but not as permanent pots outside with really cold weather. Now for something much more colourful, you've got these glazed containers here. So they have been formed and air dried, and then there's a liquid glaze goes over the top before it's finally fired, and this removes any form of the porous nature of the container and of course makes it frost proof. And there are many different designs and colours. These containers are very heavy when they're empty, so when they're full it's not as easy to move around as some of the lighter containers like plastic or the metalwork. But they're beautiful containers and they are frost proof, and you can colour coordinate the plants to the colours of the containers you've got. Next up is composite. Let me get right in there. Now this is a composite container that, as you can see, has been made. It's a softer material that is pressed into shape. That's where you get these really nice angled corners. It looks like slate, but it isn't. And with those, they're much more lightweight than the glazed ones here, and they can be more intricate patterns. They're pretty good to mimic other style of containers, but much more practical to handle. Next one is wood. It can be very ornamental like this one is here, or you can use half barrels. You can buy these old whiskey barrels. Now the good thing about wood is that it's a really good natural insulator. It warms up slowly and cools down slowly. But what it doesn't like is moist compost right by the side of the wood, as it will slowly deteriorate the wood. That's why it's always best to line the inside of a wooden container with plastic, or choose things like larch or cedar or oak, which is a longer lasting wood. Now over here there's galvanized metal containers. Now these look pretty good and are lightweight, but of course with metal and hot sun, it heats up the soil pretty quickly in the containers during summertime. So things like herbs and more Mediterranean plants will do better in metal. But of course during the winter it has the reverse effect and gets very cold. So choose the right plants if you are choosing a metal container.
Last but not least, plastic.
With technology today, they can make plastic look like slate or wood or stone. Of course it's frost-proof, it's lightweight, but if you are choosing plastic, it's always best to make sure you choose UV stabilised resin, and the labels should be able to tell you that.
And once you've chosen your material, there are a few extra things to think about. All pots should have drainage holes. With plastic pots, you may have to create your own drainage holes at the bottom. This is best achieved using a drill with a small router attachment.
Shape. The traditional terracotta shape like this made it easy for you to be able to take a plant from it and repot it up into something else. So if you choose a shape that's slightly inward or bulbous, it's difficult for you to get your plant out. So an open shape enables you to transplant as the plant matures. Next is depth. If you have a quite shallow container, choose a plant with a shallow root run. Things like evergreen azaleas are pretty good. They've got quite a tight root system and will tolerate a shallower container. And finally, weight. Weight and height play a particular part. If your container is quite heavy, it'll tolerate a plant that is slightly taller. If you've got it the other way around, it becomes unstable. With the right choice of container matching the right plant, you'll have great success.
February is often our coldest month, even on the warmer days. Soil temperatures stay low, which is why sowing seeds indoors is a great idea, because you can keep your compost at a warm temperature.
Do you know, I love growing plants from seeds. If you enjoy it as well, you'll know the excitement that it gives as they germinate and the young leaves come up. But if you've never grown seeds before, it's a great thing to do. Also, you're saving money and you get a wider range of choices as well. And believe it or not, February is a great time for sowing seeds. In fact, hardy veg, like beans and the like, you can sow straight into the ground. But things like sweet peas, if you grow them indoors, you can get them off to a better start. Now there are two types of sweet peas. There are annuals that live for just a year and then you re-sow or reintroduce them into your garden the following year. But there's also a perennial or everlasting sweet pea that you can grow that stays in the ground, comes up every year. The issue with that one is it's not as fragrant and there isn't as much of the abundance of beautiful flower colour that you get with the annuals. And here I'm going to be doing the annuals because I sow them every year. I love them. Let's take a look at some of the flower colour there. And never underestimate a seed packet. At the back it's packed with all the information you need, when to sow, whether to sow outside or inside, and also some growing tips as well. Now with sweet peas, like many seeds, they start by absorbing moisture to reawaken the embryo inside. And I find sweet peas germinate better if they've been able to take up that moisture before you even plant them. You could do it in a couple of ways. One, you can just soak them in a little container that has water and then plant them 24 hours later. And the moment that 24-hour period is finished, take them from the moisture and plant them straight away. You may wish to give them a little helping hand by putting a small nick in the seed. You'll see on the seed a little slit. What you want to do is to turn it round 180 degrees so you're on the opposite side, and then with a sharp knife give it a little nick. Be careful of your fingers, don't cut the seed in half. All you're doing is breaking a little bit of the outer skin of the seed to enable the seed to split, and of course the first thing that comes out is the radicle, which is the root, and the root helps the plant by anchoring it in and then being able to take up moisture. Alternatively than letting it sit in water in a pot, you can use some damp kitchen roll or toilet paper and then encompass the whole seed within that. Of course, it's always best to have a lid on the surface so the paper doesn't dry out. And if you hydrate the seeds before you plant, they have taken in that moisture and they're already waking up. Now, they have quite deep roots, and the whole design of these deep cell pots are to help with root growth. You've got these little things here that you push together, and they're easy to reopen again, but strong enough to hold together while the plants are growing. And there we have it, 4 little pots that are all nice and deep. Now, some gardeners use toilet rolls for sweet peas. As you can see, they're quite long, which is great for the long root development. And of course, afterwards, not to disturb the roots, you can plant the sweet pea and the toilet roll in the hole, because as the toilet roll turns to mush, the roots will grow out. However, these have another advantage, because you can see through the plastic to see the root development. And of course, you can recycle these as well. The following year, wash them out, a little bit of disinfectant, and you can use them year in, year out. Okay, now onto the compost. Now, I've got some normal peat-free compost that I've added some perlite. These white bits. And perlite is expanded volcanic glass. Now, it's not sharp or anything. It's been expanded, so it's a little bit like popcorn. And if you crush it, it does turn into dust. But it helps with drainage, meaning the water free flows out, and it also adds more air in it as well. And for big seeds, like sweet peas, it does very well. I just loosen up the compost, just feel it between your fingers, just to break it up so there's no lumps. And then, literally, just wiggle your fingers, and as you can see, it fills the cell. Give it a little nudge down, add a bit more, move on to the second one. Keep banging down. Don't worry if there's a bit of a gap between where the soil is and the top, because we'll top those up afterwards. Now, planting can't be any easier. Pick up your seed, and you need a technical bit of equipment, i.e. a pencil, which makes excellent dibbers. What you want to do is to have the seed about 2.5 centimetres into the soil. So I use the point to get better penetration. Then drop your seed into the hole. You can then firm it down with the other end of the pencil and just bed it in, and then a little bit more fresh compost. Don't compact the soil, just lightly firm. After the first water, it may settle a little bit, but that way you know it's all planted at the right depth. Come on, down you go, in there. Get yourself all cozy, ready to grow, and to give me a full summer of pleasure, not only by looking at them, but also by their fragrance. There we are, all ready to germinate. Now I'm going to move these onto a cool windowsill. They need between 5 and 15 degrees to get them to germinate. And they'll germinate anything between 14 and 20 days. You start to see them sprout. Now, the secret is to keep them moist, not overwatered, and definitely don't let them dry out. And once they start to germinate and fill the root system in there, in a future episode, I'll show you how to pop them on or plant them out to make sure they grow and give plenty of summer colour. A little bit later on in the show, I'll also be showing you how to sow your own tomatoes and chillies.
From the start of February to the end of the month, we gain about an hour and a half of daylight. That means spring is on its way.
Bringing spring to the garden with all the bulbs are planted in autumn. They're all starting to poke their little heads through now, so hopefully the next few weeks they'll start to flower. Snowdrops, once you see the flowers on those, you know spring's on the way.
The garden's actually starting to come alive already. We've actually started planting a lot of bedding plants, sowing those seeds for the vegetable garden. It's starting to look a bit more like spring should.
In spring, I'm looking forward to my garden waking up with a pop of colour and waiting for that sunshine to come out.
I'm looking forward most to the bulbs, the snowdrops, the bluebells, the variety of daffodils that are amazing. Bo loves them all.
Now, two very important and very tasty ingredients in the kitchen is tomatoes and chillies. And I'm going to show you how you can grow your own from seed. Now, first of all, they're pretty good companion plants to grow because they originate from a similar area. Chillies from Central and South America, and tomatoes, they originate from Peru. So, as their heritage dictates, they prefer it a little warmer. The secret is what you plant them in. Now, this is peat-free seed and cutting compost. It's a little different to the other composts because it's much finer, enabling young roots to be able to easily penetrate and establish themselves. Smaller seeds, like chillies, and even smaller than that, tomatoes, benefit from another addition. Rather than perlite that we use for the sweet peas to aid drainage, we add vermiculite into this one. Again, it's a natural material, but it holds on to water, making sure there's plenty of moisture available for young seeds to help them germinate and grow. And the other thing about seed and cutting compost, the fertiliser only lasts a short time, just enough to help them germinate. So when the plants are big enough, they're then transplanted into a fresh pot of compost with more food. Now, I mentioned earlier about heat. What you want to do is to make sure the soil is nice and warm, but what you don't want is all the water to evaporate out. And that's where propagators come in. Now, there are a couple of options. Here's one. A propagator, it's like a little incubator. Basically, it's a seed tray with a hood, and this hood over the top helps keep it warm. Certainly where there are cold snaps, just having a simple top like this can hold in between 1 and 3 degrees Celsius. But what it also does is it keeps the water within. It doesn't just evaporate out, it evaporates and condenses on the inner surface of the propagator, and then the moisture comes back down. But you can also get a heated propagator. This has all the bells and whistles. You plug it in and it heats up. But look, even the top, slightly stronger made, has a vent as well, which is very important when the seeds germinate. But in the meanwhile, the tray sits on this pad and it gives an even heat at the bottom. And with the top on there as well, it creates the ideal temperature to assist germination and growing of the plants at a very early stage. Okay, let's start with the tomatoes. First of all, if you open up the packet, inside, they used to just be loose in there, but now it's all packed by foil. Carefully rip open the top. Now you want to get every seed out of the packet, so cut it on your hand and then give it a little flick. Look, see those little extra ones come out? And the very small seeds, and that's what we've got. Look at these little, who would have thought these little tiny seeds will be growing great tasty tomatoes. Now, some seed packets you get a lot of seed. Other seed packets you don't get as much. It's really on the value of the seed themselves. Some plants are easier to produce seed than others. Pick up a seed, over to the compost and gently place it into position. Get the next one, little bit of space, give them a chance to grow. It'll be easier for you to take the growing seedlings out if there's a bit of space around the outside of them. There we go. Now invariably I usually end up with more tomato seedlings than I need, but I still sow them all and I give some to friends. My dad has some. You're better that than keeping seeds, because their viability or their ability to germinate diminishes over time. Now, rather than just push them all in, I'm now going to use my hands to sprinkle fresh compost over the top, a little finer. You can use a sieve to do this, but I just think if I break up the compost and do this, it comes out very well. And use my hand just to lightly even out the soil on the surface, and then just a little firm down. I never fill the compost right up to the edge of the seed tray. I always leave a little gap there. Now the ideal temperature for germinating tomatoes is 18 to 22 degrees Celsius, and if the conditions are right, it can germinate anything from 5 to 10 days. I told you they were fast. There we go. I'll move it into a warm position, either on a windowsill at home or into your greenhouse, and they're ready to go. Now, onto the chillies. You'll get generally more seeds from chillies than you will tomatoes, so you can be a little bit less sensitive or detailed in planting. Personally speaking, I use an old milk bottle top. It enables me to hold on to it, and then when it's right in the hand, I can use this finger just to flick it, just to help me as evenly as possible spread the seeds. It's a lot less finicky than putting them in one by one, but if you want to be absolutely precise, you can put them in one by one. And now, just like the tomatoes, I am rubbing a coating of compost to bed in the seeds rather than pushing each individual seed down. So a nice coating, and finally just lightly firm around the outside, and they're all tucked up nicely. Then put the lid on. Make sure you turn the vent off. Now it prefers a temperature of 22 to 25 degrees Celsius, so move them in quite a warm spot, and it can take anything between 10 and 21 days before you start to see the little shoots coming out. Make sure you've plugged it in first. I did a very rough experiment. I put equal amounts of compost that is infused with perlite, normal compost, and compost that's mixed with vermiculite. I poured the same amount of water into each one, and here's what happened. The perlite, the water drained through into the bowl underneath very quickly and doesn't hold as much moisture. The compost took longer to drain through, and there is slightly less water in the bowl, whereas the vermiculite held on to the moisture and there is less water in the base of the bowl. And it just shows you how we've changed the characteristics of the compost to either be more moisture retentive or more freer draining.
I've got a competition for you. A chance to win a Garland Products One-Tier Electric Propagator, plus Fothergill's oh so simple chilli, tomato and sweet pea seeds. Click on the link in the description, leave a comment below on the gardening topic you'd like me to cover in a future episode. Open to UK residents only, closes on the 26th of February 2026 at 11:59 PM. Terms and conditions apply. It still may be a bit cold to plant things in the ground if it's not thawed, but there is nothing to stop you planting up a container to get some instant spring on your doorstep.
I do love a nice container. This particular one I'm going to plant for you is going to be a spring woodland pot, and out of all the different containers I went for this one. the glazed container. It's pretty good because I'm going to use it in February, so I want it pretty frost proof, and these certainly are. And also it holds a little bit more of the moisture in, which is great for the woodland plants that I'm going to be adding in. First of all, I'm going to add in some little primroses. Look at these. I want to extend the flowering as well, so I'm going to add in some forced bulbs. Look at these little tete-a-tete. I did a full explanation on all the different potted bulbs you can get at this time of year in the January episode of Step by Step, so check it out. To add a touch of trailing along the front of the container, I'm adding a little ivy. Now, I've not just chosen a green one, I've chosen one with slight primrose colouring on the outer part of the leaf. To give it an additional flavour of woodland, I've got some of these hardy ferns. So those are the ingredients. Let's put it together. First of all, I filled the container with peat-free compost that's specific for potting tubs, containers and baskets. What's first? Let's do a fern. Now, a good tip whenever you're removing a pot from a plant is to put your fingers along the top and squeeze the bottom. Just lightly loosen its connection and the pot should just come off like that. Remove the label as well, and then I'm going to nestle. Now, I never fill the soil right up to the surface of a container. You want a little bit below. In fact, in some cases you can see just where the glaze finishes and the earthenware is a good soil level, because it allows you to be able to fill up with water so it can soak through rather than just the water falling off the top. Loosen a bit of soil, taller plants at the back, bed it in, and then feed the rest of the soil around the outside, planting the fern to the same level of the soil as it was in the pot. I'll put another fern at the back, same process. Now, I'm going to pack these in a little bit. Naturally, if you were just putting these in for a long-term residency, you'd allow them a bit of space, but because this is really just for early spring, and then as I come into the summer I'll probably swap some of these plants out. Now to put the bulbs in, same process, but you may need to tip these ones upside down because there's not too much of a head of foliage. A light squeeze when it comes to bulbs because I don't want to separate them. Don't disturb the roots on them. And I'm going to plant them so they are, just as they are in the pot, slightly higher. When it comes to removing the bulbs, I'll dry them out and plant them at their proper depth back when it becomes autumn time. And again, if you want to know about planting bulbs in the autumn, check out our October step by step. Every month we're adding different activities. Let's bed that nicely in there. And now some of the prims. A little squeeze, just trying not to disturb too many of the roots. Position that just in there. They are quite tight because I want it to look perfect now without any gaps. Another little squeeze. There we go. Make sure there's plenty of room. Don't force them in, just bed them in quite lightly. Where you've got the gaps, you can always add in more compost to fill. And then when you water the container for the first time, it settles the compost in. There we are. So I've got a lovely evergreen coverage there with the ivy, and I've got ferns. That's a nice little woodland container to put a smile on your face at the beginning of spring.
And if you're looking for more to do this month, now is the time to spruce up things in your garden. Why not give your tools a clean? Here's my tip. Use a bit of scrunched up kitchen foil for great results.
How about that then?
And if your greenhouse windows are looking a little lacklustre, give them a scrub with a ball of old newspaper. It does just the trick. And now's the perfect moment to give your hedges a tidy trim, particularly for shaping evergreen hedges. They'll look neat all season and respond best before spring growth kicks in. It's better for birds too, as nesting season is just round the corner. In fact, the RSPB recommends you avoid cutting your hedges between March and August, so you do not disturb any of your nesting birds. But even now, check carefully before getting those shears out, and help your garden and nature get off to the best possible start.
Well, that's it for this episode. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please give this video the thumbs up. If you want some good news, in March we're doing 2 episodes, one mid-March and one at the end of March. Why not subscribe